Welcome fellow Hocus Pocus lovers. In this video I show you how to make this Hocus Pocus pumpkin decoration. For this video you'll need 3 styrofoam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. 2 pumpkins will have the stems removed. Thick floral wire found in the craft section at Dollar Tree. Glue gun and glue sticks. Jute twine, popsicle stick or a coffee stirrer. Needle nose pliers, and optional cardstock and a Cricut machine. You'll also need paint in various colors. I used red, orange, yellow, a lime green color, Kelly green, darker blue, light blue, lilac purple, dark purple, and metallic gold. I also used black and white paint along with Mod Podge Dimensional Magic and matte Mod Podge. This first step is optional, but I chose to cut out the lettering for the pumpkins with my Cricut. You can always choose to paint your lettering on directly if you like. So first I went to font.com and I found this font called Witch's Magic. I thought it had that Hocus Pocus look to it. I downloaded and installed that into my laptop. Next, in my Sure Cuts a Lot software, and using the font that I just downloaded, I typed in the words, "It's just a bunch of Hocus Pocus." As you can see from this screenshot, I had the height set at 1 inch. Next, I just cut it out. I then let my machine cut out the lettering and separated all the letters from the cutting mat. Using Mod Podge and a paintbrush, I adhered all the letters to the pumpkins. The top pumpkin consisted of the words, "It's just a," the middle pumpkin says "bunch of," and the bottom pumpkin says "Hocus Pocus." I let all the pumpkins dry and then went back and put a second coat of Mod Podge over all the letters again. This will just ensure that they stay down and won't peel up. So when all the letters are dry, it should look something like this. Next, I painted all the pumpkins with a coat of black paint. I then added a coat of Dimensional Magic to each of the letters. This will just give the lettering an embossed look and add a bit more dimension. I used a toothpick to help fill in some of the narrow corners and also to help clean up the edges a bit. Once I had applied all the Dimensional Magic, to keep it from running, I set up all the pumpkins vertically and let it dry. Next, I just applied another coat of black paint over all the pumpkins. Next, I began painting the lettering on the pumpkins. Using a fine tip paintbrush and red paint, I painted the letterings on the top pumpkin first. This lettering is actually going to be orange, but I decided to start it off with a red base coat. Orange is really hard to paint over black, so I decided it would be a little bit easier if I started off with red and then paint orange over the red later. I then used this lime green color to paint the Hocus Pocus lettering. Next, I painted the middle pumpkin's lettering with the light blue paint. Now you can see right here that I'm going back over that red paint with the orange. Now right here I'm using that dark green paint to go back over the Hocus Pocus lettering, and I'll use some of the lime green paint to go in and add some highlights. Going back to the top pumpkin, I'm using a little bit of yellow to add some highlights on the letters there. I don't have it on video, but I went back over the middle pumpkin lettering with some darker blue and used the light blue paint to create highlights on that one too. I then used a wider brush to dry brush paint all over each of the pumpkins. On the Hocus Pocus pumpkin, I dry brushed it with the light green and the darker green color. On the middle pumpkin, I dry brushed it with the blue colors as well as a little bit of that light purple color. And on the top pumpkin, I dry brushed it with a little bit of the yellow and orange. Going back to the fine tip brush, I used a little bit of white paint and just painted highlights on each of the letters. Now, if you've ever used one of the styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree, you know that the stem is pretty cheesy looking. So what I did here is I just used my glue gun to create a more realistic stem using my glue gun. Once I finished gluing the stem, I got the thick floral wire and cut several pieces about 4 inches long. This is going to create the tendrils of the pumpkin. If you don't have wire cutters, you can just take your scissors and score it and bend it back and forth until it breaks. This wire is pretty pliable and fragile. I just used needle nose pliers to create sort of a curly shape in the wire. The hot glue on the stem was still pretty warm and soft, so I was able to stick the wire right into the hot glue. If your hot glue is already dried, you can just add a little bit extra hot glue to help hold that down. I just repeated that step, adding a couple more tendrils. Now, if you're like me, when you're doing a craft, you change your mind as you go along and change things up. So you'll see that I'd already painted the stem, but I changed my mind and I didn't really like it. So thinking about Mary Sanderson's hair, I started thinking that her hair kind of looks like a pumpkin stem. So I used some more of that thick floral wire to create sort of an S shape that mimics her hairstyle. I stuck about ½ an inch or so down into the stem and glued it into place. To add some thickness onto the wire, I just started adding a little bit of hot glue and twisting jute twine around that wire. I just kept spinning it around and round and kept building it up until it kind of formed the shape that I like. Be careful doing this step. You can see that I'm using my finger to press in on the hot glue, but at that point the hot glue was still pliable but cool enough to touch. So this is what the stem looks like with all the jute string glued in place. After that, I took my glue gun and added glue all over the jute string just to kind of seal off all those fibers. Next, I'm just using a coffee stirrer to kind of smooth some of the glue out. You don't want it completely smooth though, you want a few grooves so it has a more natural look. Right here I'm just using my glue gun to add glue in between the jute string and the stem. It'll just help blend those areas in together a little bit better. I then painted the entire stem black. Once that was dry, I used the dark purple paint and painted all over the stem. I didn't worry too much about getting out into all the cracks and crevices. I wanted some of that black down in there just to give a little bit more depth. I then dry brushed all the pumpkins using that metallic gold paint. Doing this on all 3 pumpkins will give it a bit of a more cohesive look. I then dry brushed the stem with the gold paint too. You can see that I'm just gently painting it, just kind of highlighting the edges. Now when the stems were taken off the pumpkins, they should have had some toothpicks inserted into those. Remove those toothpicks from the stems. I stuck one of the toothpicks into the top of the bottom pumpkin and hot glued it into place. Once the toothpick dried, I added hot glue to the bottom of the middle pumpkin and just stuck it on top of the bottom one. Next, I just repeated that step, attaching the top pumpkin onto the middle one. And that's it. Our Hocus Pocus pumpkin tower decoration is complete. I feel like the gold makes it nice enough to easily blend with autumn decorations, but it's also kind of creepy enough to go with Halloween decorations too. If you'd like to see more of my quirky crafts, decoration tutorials, and budget how-tos, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.